Adamu, you are under arrest for harassment and stealing. You will face 10 years imprisonment.
This is the story of Adamu, a university fresher who got initiated into cultism in his level 100 of just starting university, despite all the advice his parents gave him. This story will show you the result and consequences of keeping bad friends. Before I continue the story, subscribe to our channel and comment where you are watching from. Let's continue. Let me tell you something that might sound small but can change a whole life. The kind of thing parents say that young people roll their eyes at. The kind of warning that feels dramatic until one day it becomes the only thing echoing in your head. That was the moment sitting quietly in Adamu's house, the night before he left for university. Suitcase open on the bed, new shirts folded neatly, a pair of shoes he had been saving to wear for his first lecture. Everything looked hopeful. Bright future, big dreams. But the mood in the house was heavy, like the air before rain falls. His mother moved slowly that evening, not because she was tired, but because her heart was full. She had raised this boy with prayer, discipline, and love. Now he was stepping into a world she could not see or control. She called him into her room after dinner. Not shouting, not angry, just serious in a quiet way that makes you listen. She held his hand and said, Adamu, university is another world. There are good people there, yes, but there are also boys who go there and lose themselves. Don't follow bad friends. Hold on to God and don't deviate. His father stood near the door, arms folded, nodding slowly. You know that look fathers give when they're worried but trying to stay strong. Adamu smiled and said, Mama, don't worry. I know why I'm going. And he believed it. That's the honest truth. He wasn't planning to fail. He just didn't understand how easy it is to drift when nobody is watching. The first morning Adamu woke up in his hostel room, he just lay there staring at the ceiling fan, turning slowly above him. No rooster crowing outside his window. No smell of his mother's cooking drifting into his room. Just distant voices in the corridor. Someone laughing loudly. Music playing from a phone speaker that sounded like it had seen better days. For a moment, he felt excited. This was it. University life. Freedom. Nobody telling him when to sleep or wake up. Nobody asking where he was going. He dressed quickly and stepped outside, and the campus swallowed him in movement. Students rushing to lectures, others walking casually like they had all the time in the world. Vendors shouting prices of snacks, bikes speeding past. It felt alive, fast, bigger than anything he had known. He called his mother that afternoon and told her everything was fine. The place is good, he said. I like it here. And he truly meant it. But here's something people don't talk about enough. You can be surrounded by thousands of people and still feel alone. That evening, when the noise died down a little, that feeling crept in. He didn't know anyone well yet. No real friends. No one who knew his story. That was when 3 guys from his corridor waved him over. Fresh boy, come join us, one of them called. They made space for him on the bench, shared their food, asked where he was from. They joked easily, laughed loudly, and treated him like he belonged. It felt warm, comfortable, like relief. Adamu didn't know it, but sometimes the door to trouble doesn't look like danger. Sometimes it looks exactly like friendship. You know how change doesn't usually arrive with a loud announcement. It slips in quietly, wearing the face of something harmless. That's how it started with Adamu. The 3 boys he'd begun spending time with were funny, confident, and always surrounded by people. Being around them made him feel less like a lost fresher and more like someone who belonged. They skipped lectures sometimes and brushed it off like it was nothing. One class won't kill you, they'd say, dragging him along to sit under a tree behind the hostel, passing time with jokes and loud stories about campus life. The first time Adamu missed a lecture, he felt uneasy, like he had done something wrong. By the third time, the guilt had reduced to a small whisper he could ignore. That's the thing about small compromises. They don't look dangerous. They just slowly move the line of what feels acceptable. Church activities were the next thing to go. At home, Sunday mornings meant ironing clothes early and rushing to service. Here, Sunday felt like just another day to sleep in. When his friends laughed at church boys and called them boring, Adamu laughed too, even though it pinched something inside him. He still called his mother on Sundays and said, "Yes, Mama, I went to church." The lie came out smoother each time. Think about it this way. When you repeat a lie often enough, it starts sounding like truth, even to you. He told himself he was still the same person, still the God-fearing boy his parents raised, but his actions were already moving in a different direction, one small step at a time. It happened on a Thursday night, the kind of night that feels ordinary until later you realize it changed everything. Adamu had just finished eating noodles in his room when one of the guys knocked and said, "Come, we're going somewhere." No explanation, just that tone that made it sound important. He hesitated for a second. His mind flashed to his mother's voice, telling him to be careful who he followed. But he didn't want to look childish or scared, so he locked his door and followed them out. They didn't head toward the busy parts of campus. They took a quieter path, one he hadn't noticed before, where the street lights were fewer and the air felt heavier. Nobody was joking now, nobody was loud. Even the boys who were always playful looked serious, like they were stepping into something bigger than a normal hangout. They stopped in a hidden corner behind an old building where a small group of older students stood waiting. The way those men looked at him made his chest tighten. Not friendly, nor welcoming, just measuring him. One of them began to talk about loyalty, power, and brotherhood, about how the world only respects strength and how nobody survives alone. It sounded convincing, especially to a young boy far from home, hungry to belong to something strong. Then the name came out clearly. Vikings, a cult group everyone on campus had heard whispers about. Adamu's heart started beating fast, like it was trying to warn him. He thought about turning back, just walking away, but pride held him there. He didn't want to be the weak one, so he stayed, standing on the edge of a decision that would slowly destroy his life. The night of the initiation didn't feel real at first. It felt like a strange dream he couldn't wake up from. They blindfolded him and led him through paths he couldn't see, his heart beating so hard he could hear it in his ears. Voices surrounded him, deep and commanding, asking questions he barely understood. They spoke about loyalty that comes before family, before faith, before everything. Each time he hesitated, someone shouted at him to be strong, to prove he wasn't a child. Fear and pride mixed together in his chest. He wanted to run, but he also wanted to belong. That need to belong can be louder than common sense. So he stayed. He repeated words they told him to say. He agreed to things he didn't fully grasp. By the time the blindfold came off, he felt shaken, confused, but strangely accepted. They clapped him on the back, gave him a nickname, called him brother. Walking back toward the hostel at dawn, the sky pale and quiet, Adamu felt a strange heaviness settle inside him. Not joy, not peace, just a weight he couldn't name. But when he got closer to campus and saw the way other students moved aside when they saw him with those boys, that feeling shifted. Fear from others started looking like respect to him. People whispered when they passed. Some avoided eye contact. His new friends smiled proudly, like this was the life he had just stepped into. Here's the dangerous part. When people are scared of you, it can trick you into thinking you've become important. Adamu didn't realize he had just traded his freedom for a false sense of power that would demand more from him than he was ready to give. After that night, things moved faster than Adamu expected. The same boys who used to joke around now spoke to him with a different tone, like he had crossed into a deeper level with them. They started taking him along when they went to settle issues. That was the word they used. It sounded simple, almost harmless, but it wasn't. They would approach students who owed them money or had offended someone connected to the group. Adamu mostly stood behind them, arms folded, trying to look tough while his heart beat like a drum inside his chest. The first time he saw a student trembling while apologizing, something twisted in his stomach. This wasn't the kind of respect his parents taught him to earn, but he said nothing. Silence, he was learning, was part of the role. And each time he kept quiet, it got a little easier to stay quiet the next time. His posture changed before his heart did. He started walking across campus with a certain swagger, shoulders wider, face harder, mind was harder. People noticed. Some stepped aside quickly when he passed. Others lowered their voices. His friends laughed and said, "You see, this is power." And slowly, he began to believe them. Inside, though, there was still a small voice asking questions he didn't want to answer. How did I get here? When did I stop being afraid of the wrong things? But that voice was inconvenient, and there was always noise to drown it out. Loud music, late nights, the constant presence of boys who reminded him that backing out was not an option. So he kept moving forward, even though something deep inside him already knew he was walking in the wrong direction. It didn't happen all at once. Nobody sat Adamu down and said, "Today you become someone else." It was slower than that. One night, they were behind the hostel, music playing softly from someone's phone, smoke curling into the air. One of the guys handed him something rolled tight and said, "Just try it, it'll calm you." Adamu hesitated, coughed the first time, eyes watering while they laughed and slapped his back. He felt stupid for reacting like that. So he tried again. The second time was easier. By the third, he didn't cough as much. That's how habits sneak in. They don't knock loudly. They just sit beside you until you get used to them. Soon, those late night smoke sessions became normal. A way to relax. A way to feel less tense about the things he was now involved in. He didn't call it a problem. He called it coping. At the same time, his connection to home grew thinner. Calls from his mother became shorter. When she asked, "Are you still going to church?" he answered quickly, almost automatically, "Yes, Mama, don't worry." He even learned to add small details to make the lie sound real. A sermon topic, a song they sang. Each lie felt like a small stone added to a bag he was carrying inside. He could still feel the weight, but he had learned how to walk with it. Think about it this way. When you start living two lives, one for your family and one for your friends, something inside you begins to split. Adamu was still the good son in his mother's voice notes and prayers. But on campus, in the dark corners and loud nights. He was slowly becoming someone she wouldn't recognize. The first time they stole something together, Adamu's hands wouldn't stop shaking. It was just a phone left on a table in a crowded spot where students came and went. One of the guys distracted the owner with a loud argument, and another nudged Adamu. "Take it," he whispered. For a second, Adamu froze. His mind screamed that this wasn't who he was, but his body moved anyway, almost like he didn't want to embarrass him in front of his friends. He grabbed the phone and slipped it into his pocket. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. They walked away calmly, turned a corner, then burst into laughter like they had just won a game. That laughter confused him. Nothing about what they did felt funny, yet he laughed too, partly from relief, partly from fear. After that, it became easier. Not right, just easier. They started targeting laptops, bags, anything carelessly placed. They always had a plan, always moved quickly, and each time they got away with it, a dangerous thought grew inside Adamu's head. Maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe we're smarter than everyone else. Here's what I mean. When you do wrong and nothing happens immediately, your brain starts to believe you're safe. Consequences feel like distant stories told to scare children. Adamu began to feel bold, walking around campus like he had figured out a shortcut to money and power. But deep down, in quiet moments he tried to avoid, there was still a flicker of fear. He just kept bearing it under noise, smoke, and the approval of boys who were pulling him deeper into trouble. The night they first handed Adamu a weapon, something inside him shifted in a way he couldn't explain. It wasn't like the small thefts or the smoking. This felt heavier, permanent. They were in a dimly lit corner of campus, planning how to escort someone who had refused to pay them. One of the older guys pulled out a gun and passed it to him like it was nothing more than a phone. "Hold it," he said. "Let them see it. That's enough." The metal felt cold and strange in Adamu's hand. His fingers tightened around it, not because he felt brave, but because he was afraid to drop it. His heart pounded so hard he thought he might faint, but he kept his face hard, copying the expression of the others. Nobody there wanted to look weak, not in front of each other. Here's the part people don't tell you. When you hold something dangerous long enough, it starts to feel normal. The first few times, his hands sweated and his stomach twisted. Later, he carried it with less fear, more confidence. Or what he thought was confidence. Students began to scatter when they saw the group coming. Some pretended not to notice. Others crossed the road quickly. Adamu told himself they were respected. But deep down, he knew it wasn't respect. It was fear. And fear doesn't build anything good. Still, he pushed that thought aside. In that world, fear was currency, and he had started to enjoy spending it. The boy who once avoided trouble now walked with tools meant to harm, convincing himself it was just part of surviving university life. Back home, Adamu's parents were living in a different version of his story. His mother told women in church, "My son is in University of Benin now. He's doing well." You could hear the pride in her voice, the kind that comes from years of sacrifice, finally looking like it's paying off. His father mentioned him to neighbors whenever education came up, nodding like a man whose investment was growing quietly somewhere far away. Every night, his mother still knelt beside her bed and prayed for him by name. She asked God to protect him from bad friends, from danger, from temptation. Think about that for a second. While she was praying for his safety, He was walking into situations her prayers were trying to block. The distance between what they believed and what was actually happening kept growing, but they couldn't see it. Distance can hide a lot of things. Meanwhile, on campus, Adamu was sinking deeper into a life he never imagined for himself. Late nights had become normal. Moving in groups, faces hard, eyes always scanning. He rarely had quiet moments anymore, and maybe that was on purpose. Quiet moments make you think, and thinking can make you uncomfortable. Sometimes, when he lay on his bed after everyone else had slept, he'd stare at the ceiling and remember home, his mother's voice, his father's serious advice. For a brief moment, guilt would press on his chest. Then his phone would buzz, a message from one of the guys, a plan, a meeting. And just like that, he would push the guilt aside and step back into the role he had chosen, telling himself it was already too deep to turn back. The night everything crashed started like most of their jobs did. Quiet planning, low voices, fake confidence. A wealthy man who lived near the school had just bought a brand new car. Shiny, expensive, parked carelessly outside his compound gate. One of the guys said it was an opportunity they couldn't ignore. One move and we're set for a while, he told them. Adamu felt that old fear rise again, the one he used to feel before doing something he knew was wrong. But now fear came with another voice. Pride. Don't be the weak one. Don't be the only one who says no. So he followed. They moved late at night when the streets were quieter. One person kept watch, another worked on the car. Adamu stood nearby, heart thudding, trying to look calm while every sound made him jump. When the engine finally started, they grinned at each other like they had won something. They hadn't even driven far when they heard it. Sirens, loud, close, not in the distance like in movies, right behind them. Panic exploded inside the car. Drive, someone shouted. But it was too late. Police vehicles blocked the road ahead. Lights flashed so bright it hurt his eyes. Doors opened. Shouts filled the air. Hands up! Out of the car! Adamu's hand shook as he stepped out. The gun he once carried with pride now felt like a curse he wished he had never touched. As he lay face down on the cold ground, cheek pressed to the road, one thought kept repeating in his head. This is real. This is the consequence Mama warned me about. And for the first time since joining the group, there was no laughter, no brotherhood, no sense of power, just fear, raw and heavy. The police station smelled like sweat, dust, and something else Adamu couldn't name. Maybe fear that has soaked into the walls over the years. They pushed him onto a hard bench beside the same boys who used to act fearless on campus. Nobody was talking now. Nobody was laughing. One guy kept muttering that his uncle would fix everything. Another stared at the floor like if he looked up, the reality would become solid. Adamu's mind was racing too fast to settle on one thought. Just flashes. His mother's face. The first day on campus. The night of the initiation. Every wrong step lined up in his head like a trail he had followed without thinking about where it led. A police officer came over and asked for his parents' phone number. His hands shook as he gave it. Making that call home felt worse than the arrest. When his mother picked up, he couldn't speak at first. His throat closed. She kept saying, "Hello, Adamu, are you there?" Finally, he forced the words out. "Mama, I'm at the police station." Silence fell on the line, the kind that feels heavy even through a phone. Then her voice broke. Not loud crying, just a quiet sound of pain he had never heard from her before. His father took the phone next. "What happened?" he asked. Calm but tight. Adamu couldn't explain everything. How do you summarize months of lies and bad choices in one sentence? I made a mistake, he said. But even as he said it, he knew it was bigger than a mistake. It was a path. And now he had reached the place he couldn't run from. When Adamu saw his parents walk into the police station the next morning, he felt smaller than he had ever felt in his life. His mother looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red and swollen, and the way she held her handbag tight against her chest made her seem fragile, like one more bad piece of news could break her. His father walked beside her, slower than usual, shoulders slightly bent. This was the same man who used to stand tall in church, greeting people with confidence. Now he looked like the ground had shifted under his feet. Adamu couldn't meet their eyes at first. Shame has a way of bending your neck without anyone touching you. He had imagined many ways university life could go, but not this. Not sitting behind metal bars while his parents stood outside, looking at him like they were trying to understand when they lost their son. His mother was the first to speak, her voice shaking but controlled. Adamu, why? Just one word, but it carried years of love, prayer, and trust. He opened his mouth, then closed it. What answer could be enough? Peer pressure sounded childish. Saying I don't know felt like an insult to their pain. His father sighed deeply and said, "We warned you. We begged you to be careful." He wasn't shouting. That quiet disappointment hurt more than anger would have. Here's what made it worse. They still looked worried about him, not just angry. Even after everything, they were still his parents, still hoping somehow this nightmare would end and their son would come back to them. But the process had already started moving, and love alone could not stop the consequences waiting ahead. Court didn't feel like the dramatic scenes you see in movies. No shouting lawyers, no last-minute miracles. Just a small courtroom, wooden benches, and a tired-looking judge who had probably heard stories like Adamu's too many times. The car owner spoke clearly about the night his vehicle was stolen. A police officer explained how they were caught. The facts lined up one after another, solid and unshakable. Adamu stood there listening, hands clasped, head slightly bowed. Each sentence felt like a nail sealing something shut. His parents sat behind him. He didn't turn around, but he could feel their presence like a weight between his shoulders. He wanted to disappear, to rewind time back to the night his mother warned him. But life doesn't move backward just because you regret your choices. It moves forward, carrying you along whether you're ready or not. When the judge finally spoke, the room felt too quiet. "You are hereby sentenced to 10 years imprisonment," he said, voice flat, almost routine. 10 years. The words didn't sink in at first. They floated in the air like they belonged to someone else. Then reality hit. 10 years meant missing weddings, missing funerals, missing life. 10 years meant coming out a different person, whether he wanted to or not. His mother let out a soft cry behind him. His father didn't make a sound, but the silence from him was heavy. As they led Adamu away, chains clinking softly, one thought circled his mind again and again. This didn't start with stealing a car. It started with small steps he thought didn't matter. Now those steps had carried him into a future he never planned for. Prison didn't shout when you entered. It didn't need to. The gates closed behind Adamu with a heavy sound that seemed to say, "This is your word now." The air inside felt different, thick with sweat, metal, and something like hopelessness. Men moved around with blank expressions, some loud, some quiet, all carrying stories you could almost see on their faces. Nobody cared that he had once walked proudly on a university campus. Nobody cared about cult names or fake reputations. Inside those walls, everyone was just another inmate. The first night, lying on a thin mattress in a crowded cell, sleep refused to come. He stared into the darkness and replayed his life like a film he wished he could pause and edit. His mother's warning, his father's serious face, the first lie, the first stolen phone. It all felt so clear now, painfully clear. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Prison has a way of slowing time until it feels heavy in your hands. There was routine, strict and unchanging. Wake up, line up, eat, walk, return. In that repetition, Adamu had too much time to think. Regret became his constant companion, sitting with him in the silence after lights out. Sometimes he prayed softly under his breath, not with the boldness he once had in church, but with the humility of someone who knew he had fallen far. He asked God for forgiveness, for strength, for another chance one day. But prison also hardens people. He saw fights, anger, bitterness growing in men who had given up on hope. And he felt a battle inside himself. Would he come out better or just more broken? The answer wasn't clear yet, but the years were moving whether he was ready or not. Some nights in prison were quieter than others, and those were the nights Adamu feared the most. Noise can distract you, but silence makes you face yourself. Lying on his back, staring at the ceiling he could barely see in the dark, memories would rise without permission. His mother's voice praying in the early mornings. His father clearing his throat before giving advice he didn't want to hear. He would whisper short prayers into the thin air, unsure if he still deserved to ask God for anything. Not long prayers, just small ones. Help me change. Don't give up on me. It wasn't the bold faith he once had. It was the quiet desperation of someone who had seen what his choices led to. Sometimes he felt peace after praying. Other times, he just felt tired. But he kept doing it because it was the only thread still connecting him to the person he used to be. At the same time, prison was teaching him other lessons, hard ones. He met men who had no plans to change, men who wore their crimes like badges of honor. They talked about revenge, about going back to the street stronger and smarter. Listening to them was like standing at a crossroads. He couldn't see clearly. Part of him wanted to be different, to come out and live quietly, maybe find work, make his parents proud again in some small way. Another part of him felt angry at the world, angry at himself. That anger sometimes sounded louder than hope. Here's what I mean. Pain can push you toward growth, but it can also push you toward more destruction if you let bitterness lead. As the years passed, Adamu didn't fully notice which voice he was feeding more. He just knew he was surviving, one long day at a time. The day Adamu walked out of prison, the sun felt too bright on his face, almost like the world had continued without him and didn't know how to welcome him back. 10 years is a long time. He had gone in as a young man with energy and pride. He came out quieter, thinner, with lines on his face that did match his age. His parents were waiting outside the gate. His mother rushed forward first, tears already falling, holding his shoulders like she needed to confirm he was real. His father hugged him too, firm and long, the kind of hug men give when words are not enough. For a moment, Standing there between them, Adamu felt something he hadn't felt in years. Safety, love without conditions. The car ride home was mostly quiet, but not cold, just careful. Like everyone was afraid to say the wrong thing and break the fragile hope filling the space. Back in the village, life felt smaller than he remembered, but also calmer. No sirens, no late night plans, no boys calling him to move. He helped his father with small chores, fetched water, ran errands. Neighbors watched him with mixed expressions. Some pitied him, some judged him quietly. Others just nodded and minded their business. For a short while, he tried to settle into this slower life. He avoided old trouble spots and his story ended not with power, not with respect, but with regret on a lonely road. Here's the moral, and I need you to really hear this. Bad friends can open the door, but it's your choices that keep you inside. Every small wrong step adds up. Listen to wise advice, especially from people who love you. It might feel strict, but it can save your life. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to like and subscribe so more real stories like this can reach others.